Hello everyone and welcome along to another episode of the GRL podcast. It's episode 6 of this podcasting season, but it's only episode 4, episode 4, round 4 of GRL season 3, which of course happened in Belgium, deep in the Ardennes Mountains in the French-speaking Wallonia region of Belgium. And it'll come as no surprise to anyone here because there's more chance that the sun won't rise tomorrow than Atom not joining me for a GRL podcast. It is, of course, Mr. Tom. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Nobody's ever called me Mr. Tom, to be fair.
You're A.Tom, that's what you are.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, Belgium, interesting races all week. Yeah, I guess we'll go through all the action, all the drama once again, and I'm very interested on how the dynamic of the championships and driver and team standings changed this week, as I just see a driver in our charity event, which is running today as well, spinning off, which is good to see because we gained a position. But
fantastic.
Let's move on to Belgium.
No one can tell when we're recording this episode, can they? Let's have a look at the calendar, though, of course. And this is the first time I've attempted to look at the calendar. And we can see Belgium there, 4th round. We've done Britain, Singapore, and Mexico, of course, so remember those races well. Portugal next week, Spain after that. A lot of races to come, but we are, of course, talking about Belgium round 4. Where it says there, that's 5th of December, of course. I honestly love these graphics that Anonymous has done for us. Like this calendar graphic is probably my favourite. It's fantastic, it really is. But yes, thank you again to Anonymous, because shout out for him. But that is that. Let's have a look at the track they were racing around, though. It was, of course, round 4, first Grand Prix at Spa, albeit on a very different layout in 1950, the first ever Formula 1 season. 22 laps was the race at circle length, just over 7 kilometres, meaning we were going racing for 154.088 kilometres. I have just done that in my head and I'm proud of myself. And the lap record, of course, was however actually Bottas. But of course, 19 corners at Spa, and there you can race at pretty much every single one of them, maybe except for turn 2 and 3, which is Route and Rally on. But you know, you can attempt. It may end in complete tears, as it has done this week a couple of times. But we won't touch on that too much. Or forget that ever happened. But yes, mixed division was first, and Atom, what happened in that race?
Yeah, we didn't have quite a full grid this time, but nevertheless was a very interesting race. Blade took the win for his Williams team, so he was putting in some kind of practice, but in the mixed division, obviously, and took the win from P8. Then I could take a second on a quite oversteery, slippery, no rear setup. I think that's the best way to describe it. But yeah, still P2. And Minico took, I think, his first podium of the season. He's only racing in the mixed division, obviously, but good to see him grabbing a podium spot this week, with Udar obviously in 4th, losing a few points to me. I think I'm closest to in the championship as well. So that makes it definitely more interesting than P5 Kel from Division 7. He was leading the race for a couple of laps, but then sadly lost the car and dropped down the order. And then we also got Exility, 10th Cannon, Clipscam, and Tweaky Scorpion with sadly retirements during the race for Kurt, Velasco, Chappers, Maldonado, and WRL Exotic. So we had around 50 drivers this week. Was a bit more spread out, but yeah, I think we had to expect it, especially in the mixed division, because Spa is quite a long racing track. But yeah, was a good start to the week, and from there onwards it only got better.
Yeah, 100%. And we'll look at Division 1 first, of course, and that had a fantastic, thrilling final 3 laps. If you haven't watched it, you must go back and watch it now. It's absolutely fantastic. Sora took his second win of the season. Drazzy took his best result of the season in P2, but it's his third podium in 4 races. A really good consistency from him. His other result was 5th as well. Michael, second podium in a row. Good from him. 2, Partick in P4. Good result from seemingly nowhere towards the end in that Aston Martin. Crowding picking up 8 points, meaning 20 for Aston Martin in total in that race. B. Ford carried on his good start with another 10 points, and then Atom, I think you'll be happy with 7th. We'll come to that in a sec. Lone Retreat 8th, Gary the Goat 9th, and Blade 10th. If we look at that, what that is the standings, then Drazzy and Sora tied at the top. Technically, Sora's ahead on countback, but, they're tied, and there's a long, long way to go. But like I said before, I touched on it, 7th for you. You must be happy with that.
Yeah, it's alright. I said I want to get points in, when I can. I need to grab them. I can't really complain with 6 points, that is. So I definitely take them, but I think if the race takes 2 or 3 more laps, or we have 1 less safety car in the first few laps, I'll probably somehow end up on the podium because all the drivers ahead had so old tyres.
Yeah.
And some of them already had punctures, which would have been, of course, very sweet, especially after missing out on a potential podium at Britain at round 1. Yeah, as said, I'm definitely not in the top 10 drivers this season on raw pace, but it was good to take home some points. And hey, I'm only 2 points, I think, off the 10th position in the championship. And with rain on my side, I'm sure we can keep up some momentum, even though with his momentum stopped a bit on a straight, which wasn't very ideal for him.
Yeah, well, exactly. That was an interesting moment, I think one has to say. But yeah, overall, it's a good result for Red Bull again. I mean, 40 points from the weekend catapults him into the lead of the championship. Williams there in second, of course, with Drazzy and Blade, because both of them in the top 10 in the driver standings. But honestly, word on Drazzy, his consistency so far this season has been absolutely unmatched. I think it was, third, fifth, second. I mean, it's fantastic. And the fact that he's leading the championship without having, co-leading, without having won a race yet, really shows how good he's been. We'll hope Sky Spider is back firing soon as well. Rage, I think he's got some issues, so he may not be able to race with us for the next couple of weeks. We hope he can. But again, Michael's sneaking up there as well. He's equal 5th in the standings. There are some really good performances going on from a couple of these drivers so far this season. And I think before the Christmas break, we've got Portugal and Spain. You can really try and push for that, little edge over the Christmas period.
Yeah, I mean, on my end, the snow is outside everywhere, and we are going to some very hot places with Portugal and Spain, with some very hot racing, I hope. And as you said, yeah, Michael, probably the man of the last 2 races. I mean, you can't ignore Drazzy, obviously, because he's level on points with Sora championship leader. But yeah, I think Michael really made the biggest step or development since the start of the season, and it's difficult because I personally don't know Michael too long and haven't raced him too much, but if I have to make some comparison, I'd probably say this is the Michael we saw in the last season of GRL, which you also commentating in.
Yeah.
But he was very, very quick as well. So I think the pace is definitely there. Yeah, I hope he can get up there in the really top region of the championship. I mean, Beeford and Drazzy from ROM or GRL, however you want to call it, are definitely showing their consistency, because neither of them, I think, has won a race, And yeah, Sora picked up 2 wins, so he's definitely a make or break so far. And as you said, Spider and Rachel, we have to see what they can deliver, because also Spider doesn't won a race. So the only one up there who's actually won a race was
Sora.
So
yeah, the only man, because Ninja hasn't won a race, has he, either?
No, Rain has won at Mexico.
Rain won,
Sora's
Spider
won.
won, and yeah, and then Sora won the other two, didn't he?
No, Spider didn't win. Rage won at
Sorry,
Singapore.
that's what I mean. That's what I mean. Sorry, you're right. But yeah, I mean it's interesting because those Drazzy and Beefle, the two ROM boys, as said on there, but GRL, whatever you want to call them, they've got 100 points in the first four races between them, and yet neither of them have got a win. That's an average of 25 points a race, but neither of them have got the full 25. It just shows really how consistent they've been, and I am really looking forward to what they can do.
I mean, obviously, I hope that Razzie can really keep the momentum going up then the championship. But if you just go away from that Williams and to see a Red Bull and a Mercedes up then the championship, that's quite tasty, I have to say. But obviously, I think that Razzie will try to keep that Williams up there. And yeah, I think for now he's I wouldn't say he's untouchable on pure pace, but I think it will be very tough for the others to really get rid of him in the championship fight for now, especially until the Christmas break. So we'll have to see how the drivers cope in the first sprint of the season and see what this changes in if you look at the championship next week.
Definitely. Well, we'll leave Div 1 here and we'll move on to the next division with a special guest joining us. So let's move on to Division 2 now, and I'm very pleased to say that Zinity has joined us in the box to talk about Div 2. So Zinity, you've done the comms for this so far this season. How's Div 2 going?
Well, it's been enjoyable. Haven't done all the races in Singapore, but it's a very competitive tier for tier 2. I mean, you've got a lot of fast drivers in there. But Slapboss has he's leading the way currently, 56 points over Josh Gilly. Josh Gilly, I would say he's been the quickest in terms of raw pace, but Silverstone, he couldn't quite manage to take the race win, even though he was leading for quite a while. But Slapboss has been very consistent. He's really impressed me. I've seen him in other leagues. He's a very consistent driver, and at the end of the day, that is what is going to win you a lot of league titles. Consistency. Distant Bard, he's also been very consistent, although unfortunately at Belgium he had a quite dramatic start of crashing with I think it was Ash Rainbow. Yeah. Delta as well. I think if I remember right, he's missed a few rounds, maybe. But he did win the first round in Silverstone.
But yeah, I mean,
it's been
there's lots
enjoyable.
Yeah, it's lots of close battles in there because I think Ferrari and Alpine, like looking at the screen here, it's 87 for Ferrari and 84 for Alpine. It's a cracking title fight, constructors wise.
Yeah, it's very close up there.
So I mean, just looking at this Belgium race that we've just had, it was George Gilly who won. He finally got that win. Slapboss, of course, coming in second. Aston's made a little mistake there. He should be in the Ferrari, not the Aston Martin. Silly Aston. Anyway, Clever came home P3 after crashing down the Kemmel Straight in qualifying. I remember that very clearly because it was quite funny. But I mean, yeah, some good performances there as well. I mean, Scaeus up there, Delta up there, Solar up there. But I mean, looking at the championship picture, have you got any favourites for the championship? Do you think drivers really?
Well, I did actually say before the season that I thought CRT Phoenix might do quite well, but I haven't seen anything from him. So that was wildly wrong.
Yeah.
But I think Slapboss can take this championship 100%. He's consistent. He's done well. I mean, look at Belgium. He had a torrid start. He was down at last at the start of the race. He comes back to P2. I mean, he doesn't give up. And he rarely makes a mistake, and when he does, he can bring it back. But someone else I'm expecting to be up there, Amos Lloyd. He's really impressed me with his comebacks. I remember at Silverstone, he made quite a comeback after getting disconnected. So don't rule him out. Jackster as well. He got in an incident as well out of Belgium, but he took the win at Mexico. he could shoot right up there because he definitely has the pace to do
Yeah,
so.
100%. And ask me, have you got
But
anything to ask at all?
Uh, yeah, I mean it's pretty summed up now. Yeah, I think Lloyd is probably a bit of a surprise pace wise. We mentioned the top four already. Yeah, I think it'll be interesting what Clever can do after his first big score of points this week. And yeah, Spy's obviously good to overtake, like improved, but he'll probably need a win or two in the next two rounds to really challenge the top guys. And also Scarius in P6, 5 in the championship has also impressed me because I didn't think he would do too well after only racing in the
Yeah.
North American tier last season. So Ferrari looks solid, but we got only two people who got two podiums yet in Division 2. So we'll probably see another three next week. So gonna be interesting, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think the other thing to think about is, I mean, Portugal sprint race. So, you know, those drivers that often don't necessarily have a great qualifying session will be able to maybe find themselves closer to the front because they'll have that extra third of the race to race basically. But you know, I do think Slapbus is doing very well. Josh Giddy does seem like he's the fastest driver, but it's just whether he's able to convert that pace into wins. But I also think that constructors battle is really going down to the wire. But you have to, you know, got to give a word into Alpha Tauri. You've got to feel bad for them. They're only on 2 points so far. I hope they can bring it back for their sake. It is quite lonely being down there.
Just want to say, you see both McLaren drivers down there and the drivers with 0 points, but the McLaren team has 20 points. So we all know where those 20 points come from then. It's only down to reserves.
Yeah.
So Ash Rainbow and Nick should probably start getting into those top 10 positions. Otherwise, they'll have to fight with Alpha Tauri. I think their 2 points also come from reserves.
Yeah.
So their main drivers are probably struggling a little bit for sure.
And then Zinity, word on the F2. I know you do some comments for the F2. I mean, are you pleased with how that is going? I mean, it seems like we've got a good championship battle on our hands at the moment.
Yeah. Are you out front in that? I think you are.
I don't know, not anymore. I think Gibson's
Nope.
retaken it after this week.
No.
But it's me, Gibson, and Atom. I think we're all within 10 points, or maybe even 8 points at the top.
With
of
an
the,
8
top of the standings.
points,
Yeah, that's right.
Gibson on 94, Darren 89, me on 86, and now Blake jumped up to 4th, but that's quite irrelevant right now.
But yeah, I mean,
S2 is always good because the cars are so different, and I think almost because they're slower and they don't have the DRS and the pace, and I think it almost allows for better racing, and you almost got to be on the edge a lot more than in F1 cars. You really got to go for it.
yeah,
I do enjoy doing the F2, but I should be back for Hungary. I know I missed around. It might be a bit more on and off for me though, on the comms because of another league I do.
But anyway,
So just letting you know about that.
we won't. Who are they? Doesn't even matter. Thanks for doing this for us
That's all.
quickly. And yeah,
No worries, mate.
good luck at the weekend with the charity event, of course.
Thank you.
Right, so we'll move on to Div 3 then. So on to Division 3 now. It was an interesting race. Crappy got another win under his belt in the Haas. Jobbo second, Wiggy third. You know, some good performances there. XRP down in 8th. Nolan getting up the final point. But, you know, Smoke and Cheese in 4th. Nalapu in 5th. Good result for Haas, 35 points as well. But looking at what that does to the championship, I mean, Haas now have a very good lead. Trappy as well. And Jobbo. Because there is that, you know, you've got Trappy up front and then Jobbo clearly in second. And then it's a melee. AJ Nolan, Wiggy, Luca, Alpha Heated and Yoki all within 3 points. Ghosts not far off either. So this is really shaping up nicely, and the race itself was also quite a good race in Division 3.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in the last few rounds, we could already see that Trappy is probably the one to beat now. Now everything's settled down a bit because I think in every division, round one, Britain was very mixed up, and I wouldn't call it chaos, but it definitely was a different race to round 2 to 4, I think. And now everything's settled down a bit. Trappy definitely proved that he is probably the quickest driver, because if I look at all the race results, Trappy finished 4th at round 1, 3rd in Singapore at round 2, and now in Mexico and Belgium. He won the races, so it's definitely looking good for him. He got 77 points off 108 that were possible, I think, with the 2 extra points. So that's very good by him. Also, Jobbo in second. We probably didn't fully expect that one. To him doing that well.
Jobbo's having a good season, isn't he? 54 points. I mean,
very solid.
He's got more on his own than 8 of the teams, with the exception of his team and Trappy's team.
Yeah, I mean, it would just be probably very interesting what he could do in the races if he just had that edge more in quali, because what I heard, his qualifying isn't the best. Around me, not that one lap pace you need probably to be there where Trappy is right now. But yeah, also Wiggy, solid podium for him, and Smoke and Cheese finally getting points with Nalapu, also good points for Haas. And then I said, midfield melee is probably the best description of it. The fight for P3 is very interesting right now. I mean, Coded Ghost somehow still in the top 8 in the championship because it's that close. So, Trappy's not making around 5 at Portugal with the sprint. So with top weekend, Jobbo could even take the championship lead, and I think that's probably the thing we need to look out for the most.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. But yeah, Division 3 is hotting up nicely. It'll be interesting to see whether Trappy can extend that lead before we get to Christmas. But yeah, I mean, a lot of interesting stuff going on there. We will now take you to Division 4. And there it is, Division 4. It was a win for SLR Jam. SLR Ham came in P3. The SLR guys picking up some good points again. Jake's in second, Hops in fourth. Andrew coming home in 7th, of course, Div 4 champion last season, and then Raven down in 8th. A couple of good points. Points for Alpine there. 8 points for Dobby and 1 for PD. And again, points for Ferrari. But again, it's Williams who've moved up to second in the overall constructors. So those 25 from Jam are important. And if we take a look at the overall standings in Div 4, then it is a very tight one here. Hops leads the championship from Jam, from Rex, from Dobby, from Ham. But they're all within 8 points, the top 5. But Ferrari do have a nice, comfortable lead in the constructors.
Yeah, definitely. The 2 SLR guys are definitely on full pace right now. They possibly only have 2 races left in Division 4, because apparently those 2 out-qualified P3, like the Pulsed out-qualified P3, which I think was Hops or Rex, by 8/10 of a second, which, considering the grid we anticipated, is too much right now. So we might not make them a Christmas present with a change of divisions. But if they keep performing like that, they'll probably get moved up. I mean, Hobbs leads the championship, which is good for him. And the advantage he got is he knows he's in the correct division because he was always there or thereabout. But yeah, for the 2 SLR guys, we hope they don't suddenly start sandbagging. But nevertheless, we'll probably realize if they suddenly are 1 or 2 seconds off the pace. But yeah, the top in this championship is probably the most interesting part, because in the midfield, of course, there are people around 20 points, but that's mostly of like P5s, P6s at best. Exotic needs to perform, who's now in P6 because he got that win at Britain, but nothing came of it. I think also some internet issues. on his side. But as you said, the Ferrari's looking very good over the whole Division 4 season so far. So they look like they got it covered. And we have to see if some of the classic Division 4 drivers, where we placed them at the beginning of the season, will be able to challenge the drivers of SLR Jam and SLR Ham, which are definitely some great names, that's for sure.
Definitely. But yeah, Div 4, another one to look out for as we move on to Porto now. And now we'll go on to the lower divisions now, and we'll start with Div 5. So this is Division 5 then, and it was Ronnie who won out in the end. Batsy and Mashallah got P2 and P3 for the Alfa Romeo team, and Gazza Buchanan up there in P4. So good results for them. Ronnie did well in that race. You can see Lando getting out of his car. I don't even think he won that race in that photo, did he? But anyway, Y2K coming home in 10th. Good point for him. But double points from McLaren, double points for Alfa Romeo, and then a smattering of others. But no Alpine and no Ferrari in the top 10 in this one.
No, Ferrari and Alpine both struggled a bit this week. Because I did some statistics earlier and figured out that Alpine and Ferrari actually were the two teams who scored the lowest amount of points this week. So that's good for the competitivity and the overall constructors, but obviously bad for them. And McLaren did well with a win of Ronnie and also some points for Lemon. Apparently, they were close to a 1-2, but Lemon just bottled it. Alfa Romeo with a double podium, also nice to see for Batsy in second on his home race to get a solid result in. And from there on, it's just a midfield fight down there as well, and pretty close in the championship. Ronnie just has quite a big margin over P2, J Street and Batsy. But the rest of the championship seems quite close, and can't wait for the next round there.
Yeah, I mean, because Chris Green and Batsy are tied, and then you've got Lems a little further back, and then Ollie, Trappist and Jakob tied, and then Asma, Frog and Mex and Bob 1 point behind them. So it's ridiculous. I think even the constructors, Alpine, Alpha Tauri and Alfa Romeo, all on 54 points. So apart from McLaren, it's an absolute melee there. But it will be interesting to see what Ronnie can do, especially coming up to the sprint race of the season at Portimao. That's next week. I'm looking forward to this one because I feel like, especially that midfield. I mean, Ollie, as I just said, the five down there that will split by a point. They're really going to be battling for every point because each one will be valuable when you're in a situation like that.
Yeah, definitely, and most of them know each other from last season, from Division 4. So also probably a higher kind of respect between those drivers, with obviously a few new ones this season, as we mentioned in the last few weeks. But Ronnie somehow, after only winning 2 races, but still a 20 gap margin is quite big, considering he had 2 kind of bad rounds recently. And his teammate is close to P2 as well, so McLaren are definitely doing a stellar job so far. But you can't just calm it down now. You need to push on, and I guess that's what Ron's trying to until the Christmas break.
Yeah, 100%, definitely. We'll leave Div 5 there, then that's an interesting one to keep your eye on. And moving to Div 6, and it was Azrael who won Div 6. Echo came home second with Obolf in third. Again, you see Alpine in 5th and Ferrari in 7th. But again, Williams have moved up, haven't they? So 4th and 9th for them isn't too bad. Another double points finish for Haas as well, albeit second and just the extra 1 for 10th. But Mercedes doing well in this one. I mean, Azrael doing well. I mean, if we look at the standings, it just shows that he does lead now relatively comfortably. He's got 11 points of a lead over Echo, and then back to Tron, his teammate. But it just shows that Mercedes team has an absolutely fantastic lead at the top of the table on it with 102. But then again, look at that midfield. Ferrari down to Alfa Romeo, 12 points in it, and then poor old McLaren there still on 0, even though we're 4 races in.
Yeah, as you said, Mercedes are doing brilliantly. Also, congrats to Azrael, obviously, because he's now officially the first Turkish race winner in GRL. So that's a nice thing to have for him personally, I guess. And Echo once again on the podium. So he was my prediction on the championship. So he should start beating those Mercedes drivers, because he finished behind one and the other in the last 2 rounds. So I guess he's trying to get the top spot of the podium to finally gain points on both of them. Constructors seems quite boring at the top so far. Also in the midfield, it's close between Ferrari, Williams, Aston Martin, Red Bull, and AlphaTauri. But they're already about 70 points behind Mercedes, so they're definitely the people to beat. But I think Echo is probably the only driver as of yet who can probably challenge them for race wins and in the championship, because Escape, Panda, and Luge struggled a bit, and the others were just drivers who got points in the midfield, like Ed and Tim Cannon. Once again, got to see how it develops at the beginning of this division. We had a very close championship. I think that was 1 or 2 weeks ago. We had, I think, 7 drivers within 8 points. And now it's spaced out a little bit more, so we can actually see who extracts their potential the most. And with the sprint race next week, that's going to be very interesting. What happens between the 2 Mercedes and Echo and the Haas, probably.
Yeah, definitely, and as well, even though there aren't many points off in the sprint, they could be crucial come the end. But yeah, Div 6, one to look out for as well. I mean, all of these are to look out for. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but it is really true. A lot of these divisions are really interesting. And then we'll move on to the final one, Div 7 then. And it was Jack JT who won here. It was a double points finish for the McLaren team, who did very well, scoring 28 points there. Clips Cam and It's Bright also scoring double for the Red Bull. And then Marlene Fitter-Chimera as well for the Haas team. But Div 7 is interesting. I love that photo of Vettel, by the way, that you've got. With his hair just a mop. But yeah. Div 7 is an interesting one, because of course, as you can see on your screen now, the half points that were awarded in Mexico have kind of stunted Jack JT, but he really is flying out in front. He's got 38.5 point lead over Kieran. And he scored, even though the constructor says 80, it really is 79.5, just rounds up by itself. And he's got all of Aston Martin's points, and they're still out in the lead. So this one's interesting. I feel like there's not as much jeopardy in Div 7 in terms of championship as there is elsewhere, but still interesting to see Jack doing well.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, Jack is just having a great season so far. He won 3 out of 4 races, and the one he didn't win, apparently, there were just too many safety cars, and that was the race with the half point, where it just got pulled back, and then I think there was an incident he got involved into as well. So apparently won the luckiest and not the best race, anyways, standards as well, in this division. So he's definitely one of the drivers who will probably be in consideration around the Christmas break, what to do with his pace and if he stays Division 7. It's not been the biggest wins, I think, but just a massive consistency and pace he got so far. Also with Kell, I think he got only participated in the first 3 rounds. The 4th race this week he missed because of PlayStation issues, but he got pole position everywhere. But he's just struggling to bring the pace into the race and score consistent points, because he's definitely one of the drivers who really wants to push for Division 6 or even higher, but he's just struggling to convert it into points just yet. But as you said, in the championship, Jack JT, I mean, he's having some nice Sunday sunny evening drives so far. Kieran in 2nd and Chicken Rosary also 9-4th after solid points finish for McLaren, as you mentioned. So they did well. Chicken Rosary finally finished a race, as he stated out last week. He can't finish a race. And also Clipscam also seems to do solid with the Ferraris behind. When I look at the race results once more, I mean, Alpine and Ferrari once again not in the points. I think we only have 2 drivers who finished in the points each race, which are obviously Jack JT and Vita Chimera, so that's good for the Haas driver. Also with a double points finish this week. And yeah, constructors a bit closer set between Aston Martin and McLaren. And then it's just a midfield melee, let's say. So we have to see how this unfolds. With a sprint in Division 7, I think we're looking out for a very interesting weekend for sure. Also with a very high chance of full grid, so I can't wait for this one, to be fair.
Yeah, very much looking forward to that. But yes, that's F1 all sorted for you. We'll move on to the F2. Let's have to cope with the companion app for this one. This is the sprint race from Wednesday night's Formula 2, and it was Michael Dale who took the win. Gibson came home second and Aston third. I mean, Blades came home fourth and I came home fifth, but we were really, I think, the top 5 were away from the rest, really. And you'll see in a minute, the championship has now become far more between us two and Gibson. But it was a good win for Michael Dale. Got his first win, I believe it's his first win of the season in the F2. He's carrying through that. Through that momentum from Formula 1 as well. So it's a good week for him. But yeah, the sprint race wasn't the most exciting of F2 races, got to be said.
Well, at least for myself, Michael Dale played a role in the feature race as well. I mean, GG's on the first win, but we had some coming together in the middle sector, which and it didn't end my race, but it hampered it massively, which cost me dropping down like 10 seconds. Still a P3 for myself, so I'm quite happy I made it back to this spot, but also for you in the other Virtuosi car, it wasn't the best of weekends. With a bad call, you just had to fight your way up the order again. And with a bad week for us, we pretty much made it quite easy for Gibson to take the championship lead. And shouted also to Blade. I mean, he had a great weekend, strong pace, no penalties in the feature, overtook Gibson on track as well. So I think he deserved the win. He was definitely there, and is now 4th in the championship. And it was close between P1 and P2, P3 and P4 in the feature, which is what we could ask for on such a long track.
Yeah, look at the feature
probably
quickly.
Wasn't the...
So I'll just show the feature results now, because it was Blade who won from Gibson from you, from Valkyrie from me, but I think I had damage. I can't actually remember. But I think I had damage.
Yeah, you had damage. I remember that, yeah.
Yeah.
Because we were debating about some team orders that are considering the Bremer Valkyrie, if we should slow him down.
That's right.
But that didn't work out in the end, sadly, so we had to keep P3 and P5, which was still good recovery after both of us got quite a bit hampered in this race. So
exactly.
Still some solid points.
Because if you look at the standings now in Formula 2, that is how they lie. You can't quite see them. Let me try and move it over for you there. Oh, that'll do. That'll do for you. But yeah, Gibson is in the lead by only 5 points ahead of me. And then I'm only 3 points ahead of you, so it's really tight at the top. But then there's a long way back to Blade. 42 points between you and Blade. Blade's only got 44. So he is. It feels a lot like Season 2 GRL, doesn't it? When Blade got third in the championship, but he was miles behind you two at the front.
That's also quite interesting, which I found out a few days ago, I think, is because Gibson, you and myself kind of switched the drivers' championship lead around that often. I realized that every driver who led the championship before a weekend wasn't leading it after it. So
exactly.
if you go off this, Gibson will not lead the championship after Portimao.
Exactly.
So, it's
that'll be an
between
interesting
us.
one to watch. on Wednesday night as well. We'll have a very quick scour of the teams at the bottom just there. And you can see Virtuosi lead MP only by 30 points now. That lead's been cut mainly because a lot of Blades points came for MP, didn't they, in this weekend. So that lead's been cut, but then it's a long way back to Primer. So it's really between Virtuosi and MP for this title. But that's where we'll leave you. We've covered everything there has been to cover here at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. Of course, as we've mentioned multiple times, we will have Portugal next week sprint race, first of the season, first of 4 sprint races of the season, and it'll be the penultimate race before the Christmas break. So make sure you tune in Monday for that one, 8:30pm on the GRL channel, and then on Wednesday 7:30pm will be the Formula 2. But in the meantime, thank you for watching very much this podcast, and watching/listening, and we hope to see you on track this week. I hope you have a good race and enjoy what you are doing. But from us, me and Atom, it's goodbye.